I know you're there for the Super Bowl, but it seems even at the Super Bowl that Caleb Williams, the Bears, and the Commanders are sort of the top story or one of the top stories in the NFL. What do you think about that?
Well, it's a top story to you. It's just one of many stories in the NFL, but the NFL script writers are, of course, at work doing what they do and couldn't have created a scenario that would invite more speculation in the coming weeks because obviously Washington hires Cliff Kingsbury. Cliff Kingsbury coached Caleb Williams. Caleb Williams loves Cliff Kingsbury. Washington has the number 2 pick right behind Chicago in striking distance. Now, do I think the Bears want to trade that pick? No. Do I think they want to take Caleb Williams? I do. Do I think that it's going to remain that way until the draft? That's going to be the fun part about it. And we'll see how it all plays out. Again, I think it's going to be tough to move the Bears off their spot. I think it's tough to give up on a guy that's as highly touted as Caleb Williams. But we haven't seen Caleb Williams try to push anything yet, and we're waiting to see if that happens. Again, if you're Chicago, if you're going to be Chicago, you have to really like somebody else. And I don't know if they like anybody else nearly as much as they like Caleb Williams, so it becomes maybe a moot point.
Schefter, this became even more intriguing when Cliff Kingsbury declined to go to Vegas with the Raiders and signed up as the OC with the Commanders. What happened there, and is this a play from the Washington new ownership to try to kind of put some things in motion?
No, it's basically a case where just Vegas didn't want to guarantee him 3 years, and that's what most assistants have gotten. And so it was a situation where Washington was able to guarantee him 3 years, just like most assistant coaches are. Like, nothing unusual. The unusual part is that Vegas wasn't doing that. That was the unusual part. And when that happened, it freed him up to go to Washington.
Adam Schefter joining us. It's Waddle and Sylvie on ESPN 1000. We have heard and we have tried to ask some people about the timeline for if they choose to trade Justin Fields, when that would happen. Do you believe that would be something they would want to do sooner rather than later to get ahead of free agency?
I don't think that matters. I think that's something that if they decide that they're going to go in that direction, that will be done when they feel like it was appropriate, whenever that is, whether that's a month from now or 2 months from now. There's no right or wrong time to make that trade. It's the kind of thing that just kind of comes together. Now, if we go back to last year, if I'm not mistaken, I think they traded the number 1 overall pick like the week after free agency, right? Like late March. Am I correct?
I think so.
Yeah, it was pretty quick.
Yeah. And, again, my guess would be if that was their history last year, that was what they did, my guess is it would probably fall along those lines if it were to happen again. But, look, here's the deal. We're going to have some free agent quarterbacks out there like Kirk Cousins and Gardner Minshew. You're going to have some quarterbacks potentially available on trade like a Russell Wilson. It depends on if and how somebody identifies Justin Fields as somebody that they really want or not. And by the way, like, Chicago's got to be willing to move off him. Maybe Chicago says, hey, we're going to keep him around here. And we're going to draft the guy and keep Justin, and quarterbacks are currency and their assets, and we're going to hold on to them like that. I don't know. Like, these are all things that they have to go through and figure out how they want to do it. I don't think there's a right time or a certain time that we could be on the lookout for anything like that.
And I know you're like playing anything is possible, but you don't think that would play here, do you? Like they draft Caleb Williams and keep Justin Fields?
I don't think that's the likely scenario, but I don't rule out anything.
Schefter, what are you hearing about interest around the league in Justin Fields if he is available?
I think it would be limited to a certain extent, but it really doesn't matter if it would be limited, because if there were just a couple of teams, and I think there could be, then that's all it takes. So, it doesn't take something where you need 18 teams all vying for his services. If there are a couple, and like I said, I think there could be, then it becomes something that becomes relevant, and we'll see whether or not it happens.
Do you believe they would get a second-round pick for Justin Fields?
Definitely.
Definitely.
Definitely. I think they might get a one.
Ooh.
Really?
I do, yeah.
Who may be willing to give up that one if you had to spin the wheel and make it stop somewhere?
Well, just look at all the teams that need quarterbacks, put them all on a piece of paper. And, I mean, you give me a team that needs quarterback.
Hey, Schefter, there's also, conversation about whether or not Caleb Williams would want to go to Chicago. What is the likelihood in 2024 in the NFL today, if it is different than it used to be, that a scenario like the Eli Manning situation or the John Elway situation could materialize?
Well, here's what's interesting about that. I think it could, but those are really complicated situations, and they require a great deal of experience from a lot of people, and a lot of planning, a lot of strategy. And to date, to my knowledge, I don't believe Caleb Williams has hired an agent.
Right.
And, agents are useful in various forms of life. They're not always needed, but they always, I think, provide insurance. And in this particular case, I think it would be challenging for him to push his way out of Chicago if that's what he wanted to do without an agent. I just think he needs a mediator, whatever you want to call it, both to help you along the way to accomplish your goals if that's what you want to do. When John Elway did it, Marvin Demoff helped out there. That was his agent. When Eli Manning did it, Tom Condon was his agent and helped out there. And I would venture to tell you that if you ask John Elway and Eli Manning how instrumental Marvin Demoff and Tom Condon were in their efforts to move on to another franchise, I would bet you both of them would say incredibly instrumental.
Schefter, this is kind of a big picture question. What is the feeling around the NFL universe about this Bears team? Are they pointed in the right direction? Do people feel differently because Ryan Poles is in charge?
First of all, I don't view it like that. Like people, we're not sitting around talking about the Chicago Bears. It's Super Bowl week. We're in Vegas. We're talking about the Niners and the Chiefs.
Well, shame on you. Shame on you. You should be sitting around talking about the Bears.
You guys are talking about the Bears because that's your job, and I got it. But it's not like the national audience are sitting around being, what about the Bears?
Yeah, but you talk to everybody. You have the pulse of everybody on every topic.
Yeah, but you know what? Again, I'm just telling you, I live in a very current, trendy world. My world for a month was about coaches and head coaches and who was being hired and assistants going here and there. So there was some conversation there with the Bears coordinator news and whatnot.
Okay, well, let's forget the question I just asked you. I want to ask you about coaches then. And I know that you've got some Michigan ties as well. Do you know, did the Bears ever have any contact at all with my former quarterback, Jim Harbaugh, about taking over the head coaching job?
Not to my knowledge.
Okay.
Not to my knowledge, no.
Do you
now?
Go ahead,
Tom. Again, could there have been conversations I don't know about? Of course,
right.
But I'm not aware that was an option.
And on that topic, Shane Waldron and everyone loves the McVay tree. And obviously the Shanahan tree, you're covering the 49ers in the Super Bowl where you're at. What do you know about Waldron and his success in Seattle and the ties to the McVay tree?
Yeah, well, no, I think he's done a nice job there, and he's thought of highly in both places that he was last working. Seattle and LA didn't like him. Has an opportunity here to grow his career. To bridge together both your questions, what people say about the Bears and Shane Waldron and conversate, like they have a lot of draft assets. They've got a lot of currency here and a lot of ways for them to build this franchise up. And now it's time for them to take advantage of it. And Shane will be a big part of developing the quarterback, whoever the quarterback is, and seeing how this organization moves forward into the future. And you can't have all this draft capital and not take advantage of it. If you have this draft capital and don't take advantage of it and don't make the right decisions at quarterback, then they're going to be set back for years. But they have a chance to really position this franchise for years to come, and that's why it's so important for these people to make the decisions that they do here going forward.
And on that note, I want to double back to Caleb Williams one more time.
Yeah.
If they would pull a power play, and I know what you said about the agents. You know, we've had a lot of talk about this. Like, what would the Bears get from the Commanders? It's only one spot back, and we've argued with Yurko and some other people about this. Like, this isn't like a chart move, is this? Because Ryan Poles doesn't have to get out of the Commanders' way.
No.
Wouldn't they ask for the moon if, in fact, they would trade down with the Commanders?
Absolutely. And I don't even know what you guys have discussed as potential compensation. But to me, it's at a minimum of 2 once.
Ooh.
Start there. Minimum.
Yeah, because Yurko was like throwing at us like a third, like because it's only one spot. We said, screw that. Like, you get the world. Yeah.
I don't care that it's one spot. It's one spot for one allegedly generational talent. And if he is what people say, and you want him, and you are the Bears and you're giving up the right to go pick this guy for whatever reason, then you're going to be and should be compensated. And so let's just say for a moment they do trade that pick to Washington, okay? Like, we're coming up with a hypothetical.
Mm-hmm.
So now you've got all the compensation that you got from the Panthers last year. You got all the compensation that you did from the Commanders or whoever this year. How do you not come up with all that and have this franchise in a spot where it should be? Now, again, you keep trading every pick all you want for more and more draft picks. At some point, you better nail the quarterback.
That's the thing.
If you don't,
right?
If you don't, it doesn't. In a way, it doesn't really matter how many picks you have. You know, what are you going to be, the 2000 Baltimore Ravens with that unbelievable defense and some offensive talent like Jamal Lewis and Trent Dilfer? I love Trent. He's my friend, playing quarterback. Trent, admitted, he it wasn't like that team got to where it was because of him. So I don't care how many picks you got, and I love picks, and I love draft capital. But at some point, you got to have the right quarterback, whether that's Justin Fields or Caleb Williams or Drake May or Jaden Daniels or whoever it is that you believe in.
I'm curious to see whether or not a first-time GM like Adam Peters would be willing to do that in his first situation.
Absolutely. Oh, yeah. I think so.
Yeah. Okay, so I'll ask you a question about the Super Bowl. Do you believe, Schefter, that this is Andy Reid's last spin if they win?
I mean, I just think this. I think it's possible. How about that? We'll see. He's going to have to take some time. Here's the thing that we know. It's something that he's thought about in other years. It's something that's come up. If they were to win the game, he's going to take some time and have to, think about what they want to do. Now, you got Patrick Mahomes. You got a roster like that. But, why do you want to leave that? There's no real need to do that. But at some point, it's enough for everybody. And, here's the thing. We'd love Andy to stay around as long as he wants to. He deserves to. And he will. But I don't know what he's going to decide when he takes, a couple of weeks. If they win this game and you won 2 Super Bowls in a row, you want to keep doing that? You absolutely could. Or do you want to say, you know what, I'm going to go spend time with my family or my grandkids and tend to my family. And I've been away from them for a long time. Time to kind of rededicate myself to them. I can do that too. Do whatever he wants.
Yeah.
But here's the thing. I think it's a question until he comes out and says, no, I'm coaching in 20. When I hear him say that, I know that we can't speculate like this any longer.
Are you a Swiftie, Schefter? Is Schefter a Swiftie?
I took my daughter to a concert this summer. We went, and we were at her Rain show. And it wasn't just rain. It was pouring. 3.5 hours in the rain. And my level of respect for that woman, you know, it was high, but it went up infinitely that night. She was incredible. Like, unaffected by the weather that night. And performed, and an unbelievable performer, and was really was incredible.
And speaking of that, like, there's nothing more than I like than to catch up with you at our fantasy football convention and hear about your family. And when you rave about your daughter, who, by the way, is going to be doing the Super Bowl for Nickelodeon.
Awesome.
That is great. And how proud are you of your daughter and what she's become?
Well, that was, you know, I'm here now in Vegas only because of her. You know, ESPN's coverage out here doesn't really start till later this week, but she's with Nickelodeon, and we got out here Sunday. Last night was media night, and it was one of the best nights of my career. Just being with her, watching her. She was up on the podium. Like, I had ESPN on to have the clip of her with Brock Purdy. He's playing the SpongeBob with his vocal cords. And it was my daughter and young Dylan, who's on that show as well. So my daughter's named Dylan Schefter, and young Dylan, who's got more swag than anybody I've ever met. He's a 14-year-old kid, and this kid he's a prodigy. He's unbelievable, young Dylan. And so, you know, I watched her yesterday with Travis Kelce and Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid and Kyle Shanahan and Brock Purdy and Deebo Samuel and George Kittle and Rasheed Rice and all these guys. Like, honestly, like, they had a room set up for her. She's 15. You know, for the CBS pregame show and for Nickelodeon for Slime Time for Wednesday night. And I can tell you, I've been coming to the Super Bowl for 30 years. I've never had a room set up for me for a one-on-one interview ever in my life. And I couldn't be happier that she has that, and I never have. Like, I'd rather have it that way.
Does she think the Bears should take Caleb Williams with the first overall pick, Shefty?
She again, the Schefter stick on what's current and trendy, and she is focused on this game right now. She has not weighed in on her opinions about Caleb Williams yet.
Fair.
But, you know, last night, it was just very cool because at one point, you know, she's behind the ropes and she goes up to Kyle Shanahan, and she's waiting patiently for her turn, and he sees her and gives her a hug, and, you know, and starts talking to her. I'm thinking to myself, that's unbelievable. Like, I covered his dad for, you know, 16 years in Denver, and now here's my daughter covering Mike's son at the Super Bowl. Like, that's pretty cool.
That is great.
That's a picture right there. Yeah. And someone like you, were you able to let your guard down as a football guy and appreciate Michigan winning a championship just as a fan?
Not as much as I would have liked, because it was the day after the season ended, and we were all on, you know, Bill Belichick and Mike Vrabel watch at that point in time. And honestly, you know, my job means so much to me that it's just, you know, to just give it up and not track that stuff and not care about it. That's just not who I am. And so was I thrilled for the program and the coaches and players, you know, some of whom I've gotten to know? Yes, I was. And my son and daughter wanted to go. We went to the game. I took them, and I did hits for ESPN that day from the field. So that was great. It worked out really well. They loved it. It was a lifetime memory for them. And I like to tell people I was at Michigan's national championship in 1989 when they won in basketball in Seattle with my college roommates. And I was at Michigan's national championship with my son and daughter. Again, one of those things that, you know, you start out here and you wind up there. You start out covering Mike Shanahan, and here's your daughter, you know, covering Kyle Shanahan. You go with your college roommates to Michigan's college basketball national championship, and then you go with your son and your daughter to Michigan's college football. It's just, you know, I guess that's what happens when we get older, right? Like,
yeah.
You know, you have an added perspective to some of these events, and they take on different meanings.
And better meanings, yeah. That's great. Shefty, very proud of you. Love the friendship. Thank you for taking time, and really enjoy this with your daughter. This means a lot that you share the time with us, too. Thank you.
Thanks, Shefty.
I appreciate you guys having me. Nice talking to both of you guys. Hopefully chance to see you soon.